Hi guys, my name is Juan and today we're going to talk about the OINP French Speaking Skilled Worker Stream. If you don't already know, the OINP stands for the Ontario Immigrant Nominee Program. A nomination from any of the streams within the OINP would be a great way to get a permanent residence in Canada. I have some other videos covering other OINP streams, all of which are still available right now during the COVID-19 pandemic, including this stream that we will talk about today. I'll put some links for those other videos up here. They are for PhD graduate students as well as in-demand occupations. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask them down below in the comment section, but do keep in mind that I'm not a professional. However, I can connect you to a certified immigration consultant, one that would offer a free 30-minute consultation. And with that, let's get to the video. The French-speaking skilled worker stream. This stream, as the name suggests, is for French-speaking skilled workers who also have strong English skills and would like to live and work in Ontario. If you are thinking about applying for this stream, the first thing you're going to need to do is make an IRCC Express entry profile. I'll have a link in the description below to the IRCC website. And actually, even before creating that IRCC Express entry profile, you will also need to take a language test, get an educational credential assessment, an ECA for short, and this is just if you have received your education from outside of Canada, and you should determine the NOC code for your past work experience. If you don't know, NOC is short for the National Occupational Classification System. I'll have a link down below so you can find what NOC codes apply to you. After all that, and once you have created your Express entry profile, you will receive an Express entry number and a job seeker validation code. These numbers will be important if you receive a Notice of Interest, or NOI for short, from Ontario and you would like to apply for the French-speaking skilled worker stream. So how does this stream work? The OINP will search the Express entry system for candidates who may meet the requirements of the French-speaking skilled worker stream. To qualify for this stream, you must also meet the requirements of one of the two federal immigration programs, the Federal Skilled Worker Program or the Canadian Experience Class. I actually give quick summaries to both of these in another video. I'll leave a link for that right up here. If the OINP identifies you as a candidate, you will be sent an NOI through your IRCC online account. This will invite you to apply to the OINP. And you should know that once you receive that NOI, you will have 45 calendar days to apply to the OINP. This is a very popular stream, so not all of those who meet the requirements for the French-speaking skilled worker stream will actually receive an NOI. Oftentimes, having work experience in targeted occupations or sectors will help you. Now, let's talk about the requirements to qualify under the French-speaking skilled worker stream. We'll go over them one by one, but first I'll give a brief overview. And maybe the first thing I should say is that this stream does not require a job offer. The requirements are work experience. You will need to decide which federal immigration program you would like to be assessed against. That is the Federal Skilled Worker Program or the Canadian Experience Class. The next requirement is education. You will need some level of post-secondary education, and this is where the ECA will come into play if you received your education outside of Canada. To be clear, this post-secondary education has to be a bachelor's degree, a master's, or a PhD. The next requirement is language, and this covers both French and English abilities. Next up is settlement funds. You will need to prove you have the proper funds to support yourself and your family. There's intention to live in Ontario. The OINP will determine this through a variety of factors. The next requirement after that is legal status in Canada, and this one only applies to you if you are applying from within Canada. And the last requirement would be Federal Skilled Worker Program. This one only applies to you if you choose to be assessed against this program and not the Canadian Experience class. I'll have the video broken up into chapters. You can see those along the timeline, so you can click ahead or back whenever you need to. And without further ado, let's jump into it. So requirement 1 is work experience. As mentioned before, you will need to decide which federal immigration program you would like to be assessed against. Your options are the Federal Skilled Workers Program or the Canadian Experience class. The big difference between the two is that the Federal Skilled Workers Program takes work experience from anywhere in the world, whereas the Canadian Experience class only takes work experience that you gained within Canada. We'll go over both of them individually, so first let's take a look at the Federal Skilled Workers Program. For this program, you must have at least 1 year of continuous paid full-time work experience in a skill type 0 or skill level A or B occupation. I have a link down below so that you can find your NOC code and find out what skill level or type you are in. And as I said earlier, this work experience can be outside of Canada. Now, when it says full-time work, what that means is that you must be working at least 30 hours per week, and it must amount to 1,560 hours in that year of work. You can also make up these hours through part-time work. It just still has to amount to that 1,560 hours, and it can take longer than a year. Continuous work means that there are no breaks in employment over that 1 year period. And I'm pretty sure you can still take vacations, that's all fine. You must just still be employed. The work experience you gain from this must be within 5 years of the date that you actually applied to the OINP. And your work experience must be in the same primary NOC occupation that you have listed in your Express Entry profile. It is also important to notice that your work experience can come from 2 back-to-back jobs. These can be from the same or from different employers. However, at least 1 year must still be in that primary NOC occupation you put down. You can also do this while self-employed. For more details on this, maybe just send me a message and we can chat about it. And next we'll talk about the Canadian Experience class. That's the other federal program that you could choose to be assessed against when applying to the OINP French-speaking skilled worker stream. So for this program, you must have at least 1 year of cumulative full-time work experience in a skill level 0 or skill type A or B NOC code. And this experience must have been gained in Canada. As I said in the other program, but in case you skipped that one, I'm gonna have a link down below where you can check out which NOC code you fall into. I should note that you can also gain the hours necessary in work experience through part-time work as long as it still adds up to that 1,560 hours, and volunteer hours or intern hours do not count towards this. Cumulative means that the work that you have done just has to add up to 1 year. It doesn't have to be continuous work. And your work experience must have been gained in the last 3 years from the date that you applied to the OINP. And this can be in one or more of the NOC occupations that you listed in your Express Entry profile. And the last note, and this one's a little bit obvious, you must maintain a legal status within Canada while you are getting that work experience. So that is the work experience requirement. Next up, we have the education requirement. For the French-speaking skilled worker stream, you must have either a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, or a PhD degree, or an equivalent to one of those 3 from a different country. If you completed your studies within Canada, then that's all you need to know. You can continue on to the next requirement. But if you did your studies outside of Canada, then you will need to get what is called an ECA. That stands for an Educational Credential Assessment. This report will prove that your education is equivalent to the Canadian version of that degree. There are 7 organizations which can do your assessment. I'll put a quick list of those 7 up on the screen, so make sure to pause and get a good look at all of those. They all charge different amounts of money and have different processing times, so you should definitely choose what's right for you. And some of them are a little bit more specific depending on the NOC code you have in your profile. I'll have a link down below providing an overview to all of those organizations authorized to give you an ECA. Once your ECA has been completed, you must submit copies to both the IRCC and the OINP. To give that ECA to both the OINP and the IRCC, or the application will be deemed incomplete. As an extra note, the ECA you receive will only be valid for 5 years after receiving it. And the next requirement is language. You must be able to understand, read, write, and speak French at a CLB level 7 or higher. You must also be able to do the same for English at a CLB 6 or higher. To prove that you have those necessary language skills, you must take an approved French and English test before you apply to this stream. And those tests must have been taken within 2 years of applying to the OINP. I said that those tests must be approved, so I'll give a quick list here of the approved tests. And for French, those are the TEF Canada and the TCF Canada. And for English, the approved tests are the ELTS General Training Test and the CEL-PIP General Test. I'll have a link down below with more information on both the French and English tests. The next requirement is settlement funds. You must have enough money to support yourself and your family when you move to Ontario. So this requirement and the following 2 requirements, intention to live in Ontario and legal status, both of those I have covered in other videos, so I'm just gonna copy and paste those portions of those videos here, and I'll let Past Juan explain those to you. The next requirement is settlement funds. You must be able to demonstrate that you have enough money to support yourself and your dependent family should they join you when you settle in Canada. A family member would include a spouse, common law partner, or a dependent child. That means that they are a child under the age of 22, and their own children would also count under this category. This includes any children that your children might have. So there are 3 ways that you can fulfill this requirement. And to meet the requirement, you can combine multiple ones of these or do it all in a single requirement. And that will make a little more sense once I show those. And they are: 1, funds can be shown from bank statements or statement of accounts showing other investments so long as they are not locked in. 2, you must be able to show annual earnings from current employment in Ontario. Or 3, a job offer in Ontario. So to give an example, let's say that you would require $20,000 of settlement funds to fulfill this requirement. If you are currently employed in Ontario and are earning $15,000 a year, and you also have a savings of $5,000 available in your bank account, you could combine these amounts for a total of $20,000 to satisfy the settlement fund required. Do keep in mind that you do not require a job offer or current employment. You can fulfill this requirement with any one of those 3. So you could just have all that money as savings, that would be fine. You could have only a job that already pays you enough to fulfill that requirement, or if you have neither of those, you could still have a job offer where in the contract it would state how much money you would be making annually. And if it's an hourly wage, you can still calculate what you would be making annually and report that number for this requirement. I'll have a link down below with more information on these settlement funds, including how much money you would need depending on your family size. But I'll give a brief summary of what you would need if your family was a size of 1, 2, or 3 members. If your bank statement shows a single lump sum of money being deposited into it to fulfill that requirement of having the money in terms of savings, you will need to provide additional information demonstrating that this money is free of debt or any liability. The next requirement is intention to live in Ontario. This one is kind of like the name says. You must be able to demonstrate to the OINP that you have an intention to live in Ontario after you receive your permanent residence. The OINP will check this for themselves by looking into the following things: work, job offers or job applications and interviews, if you've studied here, volunteering, leasing or owning property, visiting. They'll check your professional and personal relationships, all of which would be in Ontario. So in case it wasn't clear, that's like work in Ontario, or study experience in Ontario, or volunteer experience in Ontario. And all those things would count to them verifying that you do have an intent to live in Ontario after you receive that permanent residence. The fifth requirement is that you must have a legal status in Canada. This requirement only applies to you if you are applying from within Canada. So if you're applying from outside of Canada, feel free to just skip ahead to the next chapter on the timeline. If you are applying from within Canada, you must have a legal status and maintain it until you receive your nomination. Legal status could be anything from a visitor record to study permit or work permit. You may still fulfill this requirement if you are in what's called implied status. This would mean that you have submitted an application to the IRCC to extend or renew your legal status. In this case, you would be allowed to remain in Canada working or studying until a decision has been made on your renewal or extension application to the IRCC. And I'm back. So the final requirement for the French-speaking skilled worker stream is the Federal Skilled Worker Program requirement. And this one, as the name states, only applies to you if you choose to be assessed against the Federal Skilled Workers Program. You must score at least 67 points on the 6 selection factors, and those are education, language skills, work experience, age, arranged employment in Canada, and adaptability. There is a lot of information to dig into here, so I'm going to give you a link down below in the description that will give you all of the information on those 6 factors and how to get at least 67 points. So now that we've gone through all of the mandatory requirements, we need to talk about supporting documents. You must provide supporting documents to prove both the information in your application and that you meet the eligibility criteria. All supporting documents must be scanned and submitted in either French or English. I'll have a link down below for all of the supporting documents that you will need for this stream. If your version of that supporting document is not in French or English, what you can do is get it translated, and then you can submit both a copy of the original and a copy of the translation. I'll leave a link down below for proper document translation and notarization. Now we have to talk about the cost to apply. The application fee to apply to the OINP is 1,500 Canadian dollars, and this covers the cost of processing your application. The OINP accepts payment only through Visa, Visa Debit, MasterCard, and MasterCard Debit. Refunds will only be given to you if your application is found to be incomplete or if you withdraw your application before processing has begun. Once processing has begun on your application, even if you withdraw, there will be no refund. And another warning would be that if you do not have all of your supporting documents in order, there is a chance that your application would be found incomplete after processing has begun. In such a case, you will not be refunded that cost to apply. I should also mention that the OINP will not refund unsuccessful applicants. Next, I'll talk a little bit about representation. As you probably already know, there are 3 main ways to go along with your immigration. One is to do it yourself, another is to use an immigration consultant, and then the third would be an immigration lawyer. All 3 have different pros and cons. If you do choose to use representation, while all of the requirements and such remain the same, the application process will change slightly. So I'm going to have a link down below with more information on using representation and how to use representation. Now we get to the fun part, nomination. If your application is successful, you will receive a nomination approval letter and a nomination certificate by email. The OINP will enter the details of your nomination to the IRCC Express Entry System. After this, you will receive a letter of notification of your nomination from your IRCC online account. You will have 30 calendar days to accept or refuse the nomination in the Express Entry System. If you accept, you will be given an additional 600 points for being nominated, which will give you an ITA. That's an invitation to apply for permanent residence. Once you receive your ITA, you will have 60 calendar days to submit your application for permanent residence to the IRCC, after which hopefully you'll be coming to live and work in Canada. And that's it, guys. I hope the information on the French speaking skilled worker stream proves useful to you. This is a very popular stream, and remember, no job offer is required for this one. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them down below or send me a private message. Do keep in mind, I'm not a professional. However, I can connect you with a certified immigration consultant, one that would offer a 30-minute free consultation. If the content proves useful to you, please consider liking, subscribing, and hit that notification bell to get all of the updates. And with that, guys, I hope you have a great day and a great life. Take care.